On today's episode, we're going to be going and replacing a light switch. I talked to several different people and they said, okay, we really don't want you to just start at the aspect of replacing the light switch itself. We want to kind of take us through the journey where we go get it. So we're here at Lowe's Home Improvement, and just above me, you can't see it in the frame right here. So when you first walk into the store, it may say electrical banner up here or sign, or also lighting. This particular store actually has lighting as being the main area we need to go to in the store. So right now we're going to go to and get a tester on one of the aisles. That's one of the first things I recommend you get. They got some on sale today on that same electrical aisle that we're going to get the light switch. So we're going to go and get the tester. This particular Lowe's, the dimmers will signify the aisle we need to go to look for a particular light switch that we'll be looking for today. So on aisle number 5, under dimmers. All right, so today's episode on how to with Hargett, I got a good friend of mine named Gary here with me today. He gave me a call and said, hey Jeff, he said, I've got a problem at my house. I said, what is it? We've helped lit over the years like that, you know, working each house. And he said, I've got a problem with a light switch. He said, would you be willing to come over and look at it for me? So that's where we are today. We've got over here and we're looking at a light switch. And you know, one thing as you're looking at about these different things, about why would I even try to attempt to do this, which is really cool, was always to save money, right?
Sure, so, absolutely.
I got on the phone today, made several different calls to some local electricians, and the starting price for replacing this light switch is $150. And so, you know, every time we can try to look at doing something around our home, we save a lot of money, right? So we all need it at this day and time. And so the average cost of a light switch of this type right here ranges between $7 and $12. And you know, we've already went through a little bit about how to go to Lowe's, what to look for, not to be so intimidating. We got a whole wall of different switches up there. And so after you gave me that call, I went ahead and went by Lowe's and went through. I got 2 different types of switches to try and see which one that we would need to replace today.
Okay.
And so I got those here with us. And so I actually have referred to the tester. Was actually in the package there at Lowe's. So I brought my tester in, and so I'm just going to hand that to you. That's one of the first tools that you'll use. Really, a light switch is really a very simple process. We're only going to need a couple tools. We got like a small flathead screwdriver, and that's really to go in and replace. I've already taken the plate off, but as we got this plate on here, we got 4 different screw holes on here. And that's for a small little flathead screw that holds the plate to the wall. And so that's the one type of tool that you need is for a small head screwdriver.
Okay.
Now, one thing that I like, that as a homeowner, these guys are crazy good for being so versatile around the home, because you got different bits already built into it. You can actually flip it around. You got a Phillips head on one end, a flat head on the other end. You can switch them around like that. You got a larger one for a larger screw or Phillips head screw. Okay. So I use this thing on the job site every single day. I mean, it's really worn. I actually broke the cap. I was kind of upset by that because this is really an old friend there, so I like keeping up with my screwdriver. Okay. And then the other part is, of course, when we're going to be working on this, we're going to be working without the power on it. Some guys like to do it with the power on. I'm not one of those guys. And especially if a homeowner is going to be doing this when I'm not there, I want them to make sure that they're doing this as safe as possible. So I've got a little light here that's really cool. It's got a little magnet on it. It's got a little hook. Like if you were here working and we get the lights turned out, which we will in a minute, we'll turn the breaker out. We get to the point to where we can set this up to where you can't see it. I mean, we can see it a lot better from what you're looking at. So the light comes into play there.
Okay.
Let me unplug that. And so we're back now because of...
Well, what you just heard in the background was a phone message coming in. It was from another electrician with another estimate. So we're going to let that go to voicemail.
Because we've got it handled.
We do.
Okay. All right, so now we're back to the light. All right, so once we go out here, we're going to kill the breaker in a minute. We're going to kill all the power in here. I want to make sure that that you understand that we're not working in this thing with it hot. Okay. So what I want you to do is press this top button right here. All right, you let go. What that does, that energizes, and also has a little light on the bottom of it when you flip it around. So I'm going to turn my little light out right now, and you got a light here working like when you're in the dark. Okay. And what you're going to just walk around, get up beside of me right here. Okay, Gary, yeah, put that very close to it like that. The cool thing about that tester is that you don't really have to touch any wires, which is the whole purpose of the safety part of it. So you can check probably the whole switch is probably going to be hot.
Okay, I'll check the bottom.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's hot too.
That's it, perfect. All right, so we know that the power is energized, and of course the most realistic way for me is using common sense. The lights are still on in the room. But we're going to go to the breaker panel at this point, and we'll be able to shut off identify which breaker goes in here. Sometimes people don't have them marked. I believe I've already looked at yours out here. You've got yours marked.
Yeah.
So I was able to count down. I think it's breaker number 6, but we're going to go out here and we're going to show the homeowner this is what you're looking for. You got to be able to kill power. And how do you do that? You know, we want to make sure that we do that part of it first. All right, so Gary, the coolest thing is we actually found your breaker box. There are a lot of homeowners that that don't even know where their breaker box in their house is. So, and what's even better is that you actually have a label, a legend over the top of it telling us where. So we're working in the old living room, and so we just go up there and start counting down, and I think it's number 6. Okay, just flip it over. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll go back inside, we'll get the tester, and we're going to put the tester back on the light switch and make sure that we don't have any power there.
Okay.
All right, Gary, now that we've got the breaker turned off, let's go ahead and get your tester and let's verify that the power is turned off to that particular switch.
Okay, I'm doing the top and the bottom, and it's still reading green.
Cool, fantastic. Well, we don't have any beeping, so that tells us that we don't have any power anywhere around the switch or the other switch that's next to it.
Okay.
Okay, so we're good to go there at that point. So here's your screwdriver.
Right, I'll give that back to you.
We're going to take a Phillips head screwdriver, and he's going to go through and he's going to loosen up the top screw.
Okay. All right, there it comes.
Okay, cool.
All right, it's pretty loose.
All right, yeah, we want to try and get it all the way out, but
Right.
we're going to try and get it where it makes it easiest for us to get that hook out.
And go ahead and do the bottom one as well.
Let's go ahead.
Okay. Okay.
And I like the and one thing you always want to remember too when you're taking this off is remembering which wire goes to the bottom, which wire goes to the top. A lot of times I'll just push them down to the bottom and up like that. That way I know they go right back in there. So if you go ahead and finish taking those off.
Okay. Okay, there's the top. And
Nice.
got the bottom out.
Cool. It's like
Okay.
a bad tooth. And so Gary, when I went by Lowe's, I really didn't know which type of switch you had at the time. So I went ahead and picked up the 2 different types of light switches that you would potentially have in your house or in this particular room. So this is the old one that we went ahead and took out. And let's flip it over and kind of do a comparison here. All right, so we know just by comparison that we have the ground wire on one side at the top because it was actually mounted in the top like that. And then we have our incoming power and then our common going out to the light switch.
Okay.
So we know that this is the light switch that we would need, which is called a single pole. The other type of light switch that it could have been, you could have 2 of these in the room, is called a 3-pole. All right, so that's this guy right here. You have a hot and a common right here, and another one that feeds another light switch.
Okay.
Now this guy right here, what he would do is you'd be able to turn the light switch off and on from one side of the room, all right, and then you could go over to the other side of the room and do the same thing. If we were to put the wrong type of light switch in, you'd only be able to operate the lights off of one light switch and not the other.
Okay.
But your room only has one light switch in it.
Right.
I didn't have been here before, didn't know we were looking at it, so I went ahead and bought both. So we'll just take this one switch back, and we're going to use the one that's a single pole that'll match your application. Excuse me, look at right on here. That one right there is one we're going to be putting in new.
Okay, I'll give you the old one.
Okay. Okay, Gary, so now that we got the right switch selected, let's flip it over to the side. Let's make sure we got the right orientation. So we have the ground wire connector at the top. Okay, so that's right, because that's the way that the old one came out. So we know that the wire coming in from the bottom and the top will now be landing on the terminals on the side correctly.
Right.
So if you would go ahead and just hook up your, land your wires back on the screws, and
Okay.
then we'll get your screwdriver out and we'll tighten them back down.
All right. So I've got the top on there, and trying to get the bottom.
That's the tedious part about the whole job,
Sure is.
is making sure that those wires are hooked in there.
Okay.
There you go. Heard that snap? That was a good sound.
Okay. Now I'm going to go tighten them up.
Yes, go ahead and tighten them up. There you go. Get them nice and snug. That's one of the biggest reasons for electrical failures in a home is that these termination people get in a hurry, put them in, and they get loose over a period of time. And once it comes loose, it can do one or two things. It can actually cause a fire, number one, which is horrible in and of itself. But number two is that once it gets loose, you can break your terminal and cause the switch to actually short out. Or hopefully it'll be easy fix. You can just go back and take it out and tighten it back up and put it back in. So now we're going to take our mounting screws, which we have in the top and the bottom, and go ahead and line those back up with the junction box openings.
Okay. Got one. And I've got the other.
Cool.
Okay.
And these guys are long, so they'll take a little bit to screw them back in, make sure that we get laying it back in there.
Okay. Okay. And I'll start each one
Perfect.
just a little bit, right?
Yeah, keep it steady for you. That's perfect. You're almost an electrician already. Nice. A lot of people, I would actually use a drill with a Phillips head bit on it to kind of speed up the process, but I feel more comfortable doing this by hand. It's a little bit longer, but it's a whole lot safer. You don't have to worry about it missing and going inside the box or punching anything.
Okay.
Looks like we have a very good connection. So now let's go back out to our breaker box. Let's turn our breaker back on. So really the coolest thing about doing this with a lot of processes and things that we're doing is when you're doing it yourself at home, is everything that you do, if you keep track of it, sometimes you can even write it down. All your steps it took from A to Z to get from point A all the way down through the whole process for taking it out, and then just reverse that. Go all the way back, Z to A. Now you're back to the point that you started.
Okay.
Which is really the coolest thing that applies to a lot of different type of projects that you'll be doing at home. Okay, Gary, now we're back out here to the breaker panel. All right, so we've got the light switch replaced, and so now let's go ahead and turn our breaker back on. There you go. And so now what we'll do is we'll go back into the room, we'll get our tester, and make sure that the terminals we've got is energized back up. And we'll also test and make sure the lights come back on and make sure everything works well.
Okay, sounds good.
And at this point, we can test. If you want to take your tester, you can let go. Okay, just push it one time. Oh, we got power again. Nice, okay.
Yep.
So we got power to the switch, so you can put your tester down.
Okay.
Now the biggest test of all is, let's go ahead and give it a go before we put the cover on. Nice, okay.
Works.
And I got you a little secret for this thing here, because I know you come into this room and it's only one light switch. You got to get one side or the other. This little fella actually, once you get all the lights off, it actually glows. It actually illuminates so you can see it in the dark.
Really?
Yeah, I gave you a little extra surprise that I know you really like.
Okay.
All right, so now we're going to be ready to put our cover plate on.
All right.
Now, one thing I want to show you a little bit about this thing. You notice these kind of screws are kind of like hanging on there, right? So, which is really cool. These things are actually made where they got little cleats or clips in them. When you get ready to put it on, you can actually just push your screw in like that.
Okay.
And helps you line it for you. You don't have to really try to fight to keep the screw from falling on the floor and trying to chase it down. So now you're good to go. You're back on there.
Okay.
And as you're doing that, I know you got 2 kids still at home like me. This would be a perfect project to do with one of your kids.
Sure.
Especially like when you go to the, have to turn the breaker on. What I'd like to do is say, hey, the lights go out. Because if I don't have my breakers listed in your particular spot like that, it saves you running back and forth, back and forth. Like if you have 20 breakers in that panel, then you can actually spend a lot of time going back and forth. Yeah, look, little guy right there sticking up. Now these particular guys here, unlike the wiring terminal on the switch, we don't want to make sure we get these too tight because you can crack your cover plate. But right now everything looks good. You're good to go there. You can actually see the illumination a little bit coming through on the light switch. Very nice.
That's really cool.
Good job.
Thanks so much for your help.
Yes, sir. And you know, Gary, this brings me to a really powerful point. You know, things all around us that we see in our life, God created. God created the light that we see through the sun, the darkness at night. He created the moon to give us a different light, a variance at night. So Him being the creator of all things, all we've done as man is just try to emulate or copycat the best we can of things that He has. You know, Jesus even said in the Bible that we were given 12 hours a day of daylight. And with that light, we're more apt to be able to see where we're going, not to stumble. But when it gets dark, when we're in darkness, we stumble because we can't see where we're going. And there's so many things in our world today that people live in a way of darkness that they really don't understand why. I look at it like this. It's just, when we were replacing this light switch, it was because it was broken and there was no power going from the top of the switch to the bottom. And that's the same way it is with people living in their life, is that many people live through their life with no connection to God. And that was not the way it was originally designed. God wanted to have a relationship with each one of us. He created us to be able to have that relationship. And what happened when, in the book of Genesis chapter 1, between Adam and Eve, when sin entered the picture, that broke that relationship. And that passed down, I call the sin gene, down to each person, down a long line, down to you and down to I, in that same process. So what happens in a world when we live in darkness, that's why there's so many people that's looking in all the wrong things to try and find peace, joy, and happiness in their life. People are looking for drugs and alcohol, the wrong type of relationships. They try to look for value in their job, to make as much money. Maybe that'll establish the value who I am. I'll try and climb the corporate ladder and be as powerful an influencer that I can in any way in our society. That'll establish value of who I am. What happens is when we look for all these things in the wrong places and we try them and they don't fulfill us, then that still leaves us empty, which leads to someone living in a dark world. It leads a lot of times to people leading into a road where my life has no value, so I'm just going to take it. It's a heartbreaking situation to see so many people dying on drug overdoses. And the number one disease in America is alcoholism. Someone's always trying to figure out some kind of way to change the things in the darkness in their life. For example, when we go to this light switch and we turn this light switch off, what happens is we can only see just a small dim part of it. So what happens is people are living in their life trying to figure out, and when I turn the light switch back on, that's the way it looks spiritually. Christ said it so well. To use the terminology of what we see every day we take for granted is when we're walking through life with the sun. We can see our path is lit, which way we're going. But spiritually, we really can't see where we're going. We have no connection to God. People that don't have a relationship with Him, when they live in a world of darkness, they're stumbling, they're falling over everything. And until they reestablish or connect with God in a relationship with Him, they'll never have that spiritual light. The spiritual light that leads into darkness is one that reaches every realm of your life. So the part that is so powerful about this light switch is that it is as simple as far as God is concerned. God said that He sent His Son, who's Jesus Christ. For He so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, so that whoever believes in Him has faith in knowing that He will reestablish a relationship with us, that He'll forgive us if we ask Him to. He'll come into our life and He will make that connection with us, just like we connected those wires to this light switch. One of those wires goes into the top of it, which is God's power going into that switch. But He leaves that up to us to make that choice to do so. The moment we flip that switch down, right, that connects power and disconnects power. Right now, we're assuming that we're connected with God because we've got that switch connected from top to bottom. But so many people live their life in spiritual darkness. What happens is they have this disconnect from Him. So when we ask Him to come into our life and reestablish that relationship with Him, then He shines light in us spiritually, which changes our life outwardly. Those things that I used to look for alcohol or drugs or the wrong type of relationship or my quest to make as much money as possible, all those things are no longer hold these values, what I call worldly values, that only last while I'm alive on this world. What happens is that when I die, I'm now looking for something that's much more value, and that's God's kingdom. Now I know that I'm His child. He's come into my life, and all the things that I was looking for, He has now placed all this extreme value that He loves me for who I am. I didn't have to go through my life and be a particular individual. I didn't have to achieve these different things in my life to gain His acceptance. It is so powerful an analogy with this light switch that so many people live their world disconnected from God. They are walking through life in darkness, and they're going down roads that they don't want to go to until they get to the end of it, and they see the damage when they look back around going, man, if I knew what that looked like before I went there, I wouldn't have fell over this. I wouldn't have stumbled over that. I wouldn't have done this that would have destroyed my life if I just had that light in my life. So if you'll log on to connect with God, you'll learn more about how to begin that relationship with Him. You'll learn knowing that to be connected to Him changes your life forever. We'd love to hear from you and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.